Well, that bell has finally rung. The Arizona Coyotes arena saga is over, and the Arizona Coyotes are no more, at least for now. We'll discuss on today's episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast.
You're Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. This is Locked On Coyotes, your number one daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes. Today's episode brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go. The mobile hit twist on the classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go free on the App Store and on Google Play. I'm your host, Robyn Leano, a longtime Arizona Coyotes reporter, at least for the last 7 years. Been covering the Tucson Roadrunners in Tucson when I first started as my career. Moving on to the Arizona Coyotes organization, around the same time, a lot of the Roadrunners got promoted to the Arizona Coyotes. So you can say I have a lot of insight of how this organization has been run over the last several years and these players and the growth of them, as well as where they've gone through the rebuild. I want to thank everyone for making this show your first listen every day. We're free and available everywhere you get your podcasts, including on YouTube and ad-free on Amazon Music. On today's episode, we are talking about the Arizona Coyotes' sale to Ryan Smith to Salt Lake City as the deal was finally finalized on Thursday afternoon. And we'll talk about that, what it means for Utah fans and just what it means for Arizona fans. And what's coming up next? What's the future hold for both these teams, both the franchises, both fan bases? Let's start off, and it's just first and foremost, I want to, reach out to all my Coyotes fans out there. I hear you. Your emotions are running high. Heck, I even been through some crying sessions earlier that they were seeing the death of the Arizona Coyotes 1.0. But they're not necessarily dead completely. They are technically considered dormant. I will talk a little bit about that a little bit later in the show as we can look forward to what the future holds for this team. But now the sale is complete. But it's not a traditional sale and relocation, as I mentioned. This sale is essentially with that dormant Arizona Coyotes franchise, the Smith Entertainment Group, right? The group that is held by Ryan Smith includes all hockey assets from the Arizona Coyotes, including their reserve list, so a lot of including their prospects, etc. Their players, hockey ops, draft picks, you name it. All of those are making their way to Salt Lake City, Utah. What's not headed their way to the Smith Group? The Tucson Roadrunners are being maintained by the Morello Group. So we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. The business office for the Arizona Coyotes will remain in Arizona as they work towards the ultimate goal of building a new stadium and entertainment district in Phoenix. That's still their goal. Again, something I will talk a little bit more in depth on, but that is their goal. While the rest of the team goes on their way to Utah. So what does this essentially mean? I read the statement made by the NHL, and here is what we need to know. This NHL Utah club is officially designated a new franchise. It is not a relocated franchise. It is not an expansion club. So because it's not an expansion club, no expansion draft. Because it's not a relocated franchise, the team history stays and does not go with the team. So the team history for the Arizona Coyotes will remain in Arizona. So no records follow to Utah from the original Winnipeg Jets, as well as the Phoenix/Arizona Coyotes. This Utah team will play in the Delta Center, home of the Utah Jazz, beginning in 2024. It includes about 12,000 unobstructed seats, potentially going upwards of an extra 6,000, so it could be around like 17,000, 18,000 fans. Being able to watch hockey in the Delta Center However, just a heads up, it's not going to, some of those seats will be obstructed. As I mentioned, those additional 6,000 will require a lot of creativity on figuring out how to get the best experience for watching hockey in an arena that, quite frankly, what isn't fit for hockey right now. There's going to be a renovations going underway that apparently that they want to take care of within the next few years of that facility to be able to hold hockey. And to my knowledge, that is their goal, to be able to play hockey in that in that arena long term. A team name has not been decided. This is the interesting thing, guys. I'm really curious about this. I mean, it makes sense. Look, they have such a quick turnaround. We're talking just a matter of months before this team makes their way on to Utah. And a team name has yet to be decided. They want to make sure they get it right. They will get a team name that will truly define the Utah fan base. The Arizona Coyotes name, of course, isn't going to go with them because the Murillo Group holds it, or I'll say the Coyotes name doesn't go. So they will need a completely new name. As of right now, because like I said, there is no name. And from what I've been able to hear, a name likely won't get decided until season 2. So we're talking 2025, 2026. An official nickname not decided until then. So what happens before then? Your guess is as good as mine. Very likely situation is we're talking maybe they're just being temporarily named NHL or NHL in Utah or Utah Hockey Club, Utah HC, whatever you want to go down, which is interesting because Utah Hockey Club and Utah HC, according to the U.S. Trademark Office, actually were submitted as applications as potential names that was submitted to them earlier this week. 5 names, indeed, in fact, were actually already submitted to the U.S. Trademark Office, including Utah HC and Utah Hockey Club. Utah Fury, Utah Venom, and Utah Blizzard are all other names that were submitted. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. You listen to what I said. I said Utah. I didn't say Salt Lake or Salt Lake City, whatever. So here's another case of where the city name is not included in the team name. That's not going to be included in the team name. That much we do know, that it will be the state name. So just like how the Arizona Coyotes were the Arizona Coyotes, the Colorado Avalanche or the Colorado Avalanche, New Jersey Devils, etc., etc. We have multiple team names that still carry the state name, or sometimes even the region name, like Carolina Hurricanes out of both the Carolinas. You also have the Florida Panthers. There are so many different team names that carry those. So it doesn't surprise me that we're getting another situation like this. Also taking a look at Ryan Smith's history. He's the current owner of the Utah Jazz. It makes sense. You want to be able to include, have inclusivity for all people of Utah. I think that's kind of their goal, is to say, hey, this team is the state of Utah's, and it will to be inclusive. It's like, yeah, if you're all the way out in another part of the state, not saying there's it's a very sparsely populated state outside of the Salt Lake metropolitan area, but if for those that are outside of those, like, hey, I don't live in Salt Lake, I live in Provo. It's just not too far from Salt Lake, but I live there, or I live in anywhere else. Really, I don't know very much of Utah yet. So if you are a Utah fan, please forgive me if you are from Utah. I'd love to be educated. Tell me about your state. I want to know about it, so I'm able to get to know a little bit about you guys as much as I can, because I plan on sticking around of this podcast as we get ready for a rebrand or whatever the team name does end up being. But it certainly is an interesting discussion to say, hey, we don't know what this team is going to be. All we know is NHL is going to Utah, and they were retaining all the players and all the staff, or these hockey ops staff, from the Arizona Coyotes. What does this mean for Arizona, though? What's the future hold for the Arizona Coyotes? We'll talk about that right after this. And today's episode is brought to you by Policygenius. Policygenius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. Policygenius helps you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help you talk you through it. With Policygenius, you can find those life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Your work life insurance policy may not offer enough protection for your family's needs. Even worse, it might not even come with you if you leave your job. That's why Policygenius is out there to give you unbiased advice from licensed experts support team. They have no incentive to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL. Let's continue this episode of Locked On Coyotes. We talk Arizona Coyotes sale completed to the Smith Entertainment Group, and it wasn't a direct sale. Here's the situation of how it went down. The Smith Entertainment Group paid the National Hockey League $1.3 billion to acquire the Arizona Coyotes. In turn, Alex Meruelo, the now previous owner, was given $1 billion to essentially transfer those assets over to Ryan Smith. What happens to the remaining $300 million? Well, that money gets split between all of the remaining NHL clubs as part of essentially the pseudo relocation fee. So the relocation is still a part of it because it is a relocated team, but not in the traditional sense as we mentioned earlier. And I want to readdress that. I said I would talk about it later, and I'll get to that now. The Arizona Coyotes officially designated a dormant/inactive franchise. So that just means that the team still exists. They just are no longer going to be playing in the NHL for at least the foreseeable future. But the team still exists. The history still exists. It is still there. Alex Meruelo, the owner of the Arizona Coyotes, the chairman of the Arizona Coyotes, receives a 5-year exclusive window to build a, quote, state-of-the-art facility for an NHL club for the right to reactivate the Arizona Coyotes. And he talked about that. I'm going to bring up his quote from the statement in the whole press release regarding the entire situation of what's going on, where he says, "I agree with Commissioner Gary Bettman in the National Hockey League that it's simply unfair to continue to have our players, coaches, hockey front office, and the NHL teams they compete against spend several more years playing in an arena that is not suited for NHL hockey. But this is not the end for NHL hockey in Arizona. I have negotiated the right to reactivate the team within the next 5 years and retained ownership of the beloved Coyotes name, brand, and logo. I remain committed to this community and building a first-class sports arena entertainment district without seeking financial support from the public." What does this mean? That means Meruelo has said he's committed. Some of you might not believe it. You don't believe it until you see it. I get it. If you're a Coyotes fan, you don't believe it until you won't believe anything until you see it at this point. And 100% get it. I do not blame you for feeling the way that you feel right now. But Alex Meruelo has said that he will commit to continuing to try to build a arena that will be suitable for the return of the Arizona Coyotes. As we talked about, those everydayers who are Coyotes fans know about the situation, what's going on in Northeast Phoenix. There is a plot of land that is open for auction, that it was approved for auction by the Arizona State Land Department after the Meruelo Group applied for that land, a 95-acre plot of land on the border of the Loop 101 and Scottsdale Road on the Phoenix side of that of that intersection. That is June 27th. That auction date is June 27th. What happens then? Well, Alex Morello needs to win the auction and take the land and build the arena. He has 5 years. Once again, 5 years to do what he says he will do, or else his rights to the Coyotes will essentially dissolve, allowing for other interest groups within Arizona to essentially swoop in and try to do the same thing. So if you're an Arizona Coyotes fan, your best bet on it happening sooner is through Alex Morello. I know a lot of you guys have your reservations about him, but at least as of right now, that is the situation. You can hold out for longer than that. A lot of teams have waited longer than that. You look at what we mentioned yesterday. If you listen to the postgame show I had of Trey Matthews and Jason Hernandez, some teams waited 14, 15 years for their teams to return. But this is an unorthodox situation because the Coyotes aren't gone really per se. Just look, the Winnipeg Jets, they were gone. They became the Phoenix Coyotes. And the new Jets doesn't assume the old Jets history. They assume the Atlanta Thrashers history because that was an actual relocated team. This is a different situation, so it could happen sooner within that 5-year window. But if you don't want Alex Morello as your owner, and your best bet maybe is to wait an extra 5+ years after that. So you're looking at another 10, 15 years for another ownership. You talked with Matthew Jacobson, my former co-host, said, hey, there could be a prominent businessman in place to get a group to take ownership of the Arizona Coyotes 2.0. But that's all speculation. What we know right now is the Morello Group is committed to this. At least that's what he says. Here's the other things to kind of give you an idea of the situation. The Morello Group does still own the Coyotes, and the Morello Group owns the Tucson Roadrunners. We've talked about what's going on with the Tucson Roadrunners, that there are plans in place to move the Tucson Roadrunners up to Mullet Arena. A lot of the information has been updated past that because I didn't really know too much at the time. All I know was that was the plan. That still is the plan. However, it seems that there are still a lot of hurdles in place for that to happen, where the city of Tucson is kind of fighting to make sure they don't leave Mullet and go to they don't leave Tucson to go to Tempe, especially with if you guys know, if you're college fans, you know the rivalry between those two cities, as well as just the situation with the Arizona Board of Regents and what they need to do to allow the Tucson Roadrunners into Mullet Arena, because of the stipulations that the lease only applies to the NHL's Arizona Coyotes and nobody else. So there actually needs to be an adjustment to the lease on that end. So a lot of different things need to happen for the Roadrunners to move up to Tempe, or to even do like a half split season, because part-time is an actual possibility that they can spend half the season in Tucson, half the season in Tempe, to kind of keep both fans happy. If I were to give you my full-on opinion about this, I really would love to see the Tucson Roadrunners stay in Tucson. Look, I would also love for them to be up here because it allows me to cover almost all their games again. Essentially go full circle, go back to where I started, so to speak. But seeing what the Roadrunners did to the Tucson community, I can't let that strip them away from that. So I'd love to see the Tucson Roadrunners stay in Tucson, but we'll see what what hurdles are in place and what exactly happens. We still have a lot of time to figure out, at least several months still. So not a whole lot of time, but there still is a load of time to find out exactly what the situation will look like down the road. The Roadrunners, at least to my knowledge, will still remain the AHL affiliate to the Utah Hockey Club, or whatever the team name will be. Don't know what it looks going to look like past that. I cannot foresee that, that future, 10, 15 years down the road. very well could happen. Like I said, if the Coyotes come back sooner, it just, the affiliation changes and they would go back to being the affiliate of the Coyotes again. We'll have to see how that goes. But we're taking this step by step, only step by step right now, because that's all we can ask for. If you are a Coyotes fan, that's all we can ask for. Eat baby steps. Baby steps, Coyotes fans. I know a lot of you guys have lofty goals. You want to see Shane Doan be part of the ownership group. You want to see all this happen. And I get it. That would be awesome. But baby steps. Let's take each of these step by step. But at least know that there is at least a somewhat plan in place that the NHL has essentially told Alex Meruelo, like, look, get this done, and you are guaranteed. You are quote guaranteed. You get your franchise back. That's all I can say. Like, I don't want to go through all the speculations of what happens if X, Y, and Z. I could go through that, but there are so many different avenues I can explore. Not enough time for this show. If you want me to talk about it, maybe just go ahead and message me on X, and maybe we can discuss that down the road. What we're going to do, though, is we're going to go take a break, and we're going to talk about the state of the team. For those Utah fans, you're going to want to stick around because maybe you weren't following the NHL, but now's your entry to the NHL because Utah has a new NHL team. Who are they? What players should you be excited for? We'll talk about that right after this. And today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. We've all been there either as a player or as a fan. It's halftime. The scoreboard is not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure you or your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep, lift your head, and say to yourself, time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much friends' money as I possibly can. That's right. The smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much to do, from playing on countless dynamic Monopoly boards, make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests in tournaments to get rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there and put on your game face. Download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or on Google Play. All right, let's go ahead and finish off this episode of Locked On Coyotes. A lot of you guys are probably asking when we are going to change the name. Obviously, that's once we know more of the of this Utah team. But for now, we will remain Locked On Coyotes. And let's talk about this team, because a lot of you guys will be like, all right, what is to look forward to for specifically this team? And I'll tell you, if you're a Utah fan, you right now have so much to be excited for so many different reasons. Let's start with reason number one. You've got an insane young prospect pool who are either already playing in the NHL or playing for the AHL or the juniors. They're on their way up to soon make a big impact. Dylan Guenther, Logan Cooley, Matthias Michelli, Josh Stone, all four of those players I just mentioned have already made a significant impact for the Arizona Coyotes and now will make a very big impact for the Utah Hockey Club. Connor Geekie is making his way through the WHL playoffs, at least last time I checked, as well as so the Memorial Cup can be very well coming his way. Very well follow his. You can very well follow him to see what he's doing. He's been making very significant strides forward since getting drafted a couple of years ago. Dmitry Shemishev and Daniel Boot is still a few years away, but they've shown some huge promise over in the Russian leagues. So you can get excited for players like them to make another significant impact. Those are young players who are ready to come relatively soon And when we say relatively, either next season or the next 3-4 seasons down the road. They have all those. Strong core leaders. We're talking Clayton Keller and Nick Schmaltz and Lawson Krause. Those are the core players I'm referring to because they are, for at least, have been known to be the ultimate captains. There is no official captain of this team. As the last couple of years, they decided they didn't, there was no need to name any official captain at this time. But once you guys are part of this franchise now you can enter the debate of who you want to be the next captain. So many people have always wanted to advocate for Clayton Keller to be the captain of an NHL team. Maybe you could be a part of that team now too, to go ahead and root on for Clayton Keller. He has been a phenomenal player. After shattering his leg only a couple seasons ago, he went and had a record-breaking season last year, and got really close to winning the Bill Masterton Trophy. Ended up getting given to another player on a different team. I believe it was blanking on his name. Doesn't matter right now. He was a finalist though because of what happened. Because that is a significant bounce back season, and it continues to build from that. You got Nick Schmaltz, who continues to be essentially like Clayton Keller's right-hand man. Lawson Krause, always working on the wing and on that middle six, helping a lot of the other skill players or middle depth players, improve their game. He had a really hard time several years ago. If you followed the NHL, you might have known during one of the COVID years that he was struggling to score. And then he finally broke that curse. He started looking really good again, getting nearly 20 goals, sometimes even more than 20 goal seasons. So if you're going to be excited for people, you got those three players again to continue to be excited for. As of right now, no defensemen are signed through 2024, 2025. A lot of had to be decided. Well, hey, because they didn't make much signing because they didn't know what the future was going to be at the time. So who knew what that was going to look like? But Ryan Smith now has essentially an open template. He can do what he wants with the defense. Obviously, you don't want him to completely do it. You essentially will give Bill Armstrong, general manager Bill Armstrong, who has been a huge part of building this team, building so many blocks and getting this team up off the rebuild from just a few years ago. And but Ryan Smith can now essentially tell Bill Armstrong, if this is really what I'm thinking and how it's going to go down, so I'm telling you, feel free to spend the money to win, to start winning and getting the right assets. Obviously, you're not going to, I sure as hope say, hey, he doesn't try to, force a rush on this rebuild that they've been trying to build over the last few years. But it certainly is a possibility that it can get expedited, so to speak, for the willing to spend a little bit more money. The Coyotes the Coyotes at the end of this season had such a really, if you look at just take a look at their cap friendly. I always say just take a look at their cap friendly, and they have so much cap space to work with going into next year. And even with the salary cap going up, Ryan Smith and Bill Armstrong will be able to have their a playground to work with in Utah. We'll see exactly how it goes down, but that playground to build a playoff contending team could very well happen within this next year or 2 years. I firmly believe that it can happen very soon. I said last year that this team has the, going into this last season, that this team has the blueprints for a playoff caliber team almost there. I said, yeah, the last season they would have been on the bubble for a few weeks before falling off. That's exactly what happened. Now they're going to take the step forward. So Utah, you are inheriting a team that is on the verge of emerging from their rebuild. So all the reason to just be incredibly excited for your new franchise. And if you want to continue to follow this franchise, Utah fans and Coyotes fans, if you want to follow what these players are doing, you can follow this podcast, currently still Locked On Coyotes. And again, until further notice, you could follow us on social media on Facebook, facebook.com/Locked On Coyotes, and on X at LO_Coyotes. Available wherever you get your podcasts, including on Apple, Google, Spotify, ad-free on Amazon Music. So be able to listen on over there. I am personally on X at that's LO_Coyotes is once again our Twitter or /X account for the podcast. I am at Robyn_Leano. That's Robyn with a Y _Leano. You can interact with me, follow me, ask me any questions you might have, DM me even. My DMs are open. And I'll answer right back. If you have any really good questions, I'll answer. I can even use them for a future episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to today's episode. Hope you guys staying safe out there. Hope you guys staying healthy and keep on howling on forever.